The executioner's dilemma. The twin suns of Valara blazed overhead, turning the cobalt streets of the capital into furnaces. Heat waves distorted the air as a crowd gathered in the central plaza, their voices a rising tide of anticipation. They had come to witness justice, or what the Sovereign Council called justice. Riker stood at the edge of the plaza, his gray enforcer's uniform absorbing the punishing heat. The ceremonial whip felt heavy in his hand, its handle carved from the bone of some extinct creature, etched with the symbols of sovereign law. His eyes remained fixed on the figure chained to the stone pillar at the center of the plaza. She wasn't human. Nira belonged to the Luridian people, beings with skin that shimmered like polished opal, changing color with their emotions. Now her skin had dulled to a pale blue, marked with purple bruises where the guards had been less than gentle. Despite her injuries, she knelt tall, her spine straight, eyes forward. The council had stripped her of her rank insignia, but they couldn't strip her of her dignity. "Approach, enforcer," commanded Magistrate Drell from his elevated platform. His voice boomed across the square through amplifiers embedded in the stones. "The prisoner Nira Vedlux stands convicted of insurgency, theft of sovereign property, and inciting rebellion among the mining colonies." The crowd jeered. Someone threw a stone that clattered near Nira's knees. She didn't flinch. "For these crimes," continued Drell, "she will receive 30 lashes, to be administered by human enforcer Riker Voss." Riker stepped forward, his boots echoing against the stone. The crowd fell silent, eager to witness punishment. He had been an enforcer for 10 years, following orders, maintaining what the Sovereign called peace. But peace built on fear wasn't peace at all. As he approached Nira, their eyes met. Hers were silver, almost luminous against her opal skin. There was no fear in them, only defiance and something deeper. Something that asked a question without words. "Begin the sentence," ordered Drell. Riker raised the whip, feeling the weight of it, the expectation of the crowd, the cold attention of the magistrate. Nira didn't turn away. She simply waited, her breathing steady despite what must have been considerable pain from her existing injuries. The whip trembled in Riker's hand as memories flooded his mind. The colonies he'd helped pacify, the people he'd arrested, the orders he'd followed without question. All for a system that measured justice in lashes and treated defiance as a disease to be purged. "Enforcer Voss," the magistrate's voice had an edge to it now. "Carry out the sentence." Riker's grip tightened on the whip. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. Then came the sound. Not the crack of leather against flesh, but the snap of breaking bone. Riker had crushed the ceremonial handle in his fist, fragments of ancient bone clattering to the cobalt stones. Collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Magistrate Drell rose from his seat, face contorted with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" "I will not do this," Riker said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent plaza. "This isn't justice. This is treason," Drell shouted. "Guards, seize him." 2 Sovereign guards rushed forward, energy batons raised. Riker moved with practiced efficiency. One swift kick sent the first guard sprawling, while a precise strike to the second's wrist disarmed him. Both collapsed to the ground, stunned but alive. Riker strode toward Nira, ignoring the chaos erupting around him. More guards were coming, but many hesitated, uncertain how to handle an enforcer gone rogue. He knelt beside Nira, reaching for her. Restraints. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. Her silver eyes studied him, caution warring with hope. "Why are you doing this?" "Because it's right," he answered simply, breaking the lock on her chains with a small tool from his belt. "And I've spent too long doing what's easy instead." As her chains fell away, Nira struggled to stand, her legs weak from confinement. Without hesitation, Riker lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her frame diminished by captivity. "Stop them!" Drell was screaming now, his amplified voice cracking with fury. "Kill the traitor!" Blaster fire erupted, energy bolts sizzling past them. But Riker was already moving, carrying Nira through the crowd. People scattered before them, more interested in self-preservation than heroics. The northwest gate, Nira, whispered through cracked lips. My people have allies there. Riker nodded, adjusting his course. More guards appeared ahead, forming a blockade. He recognized their captain, Joran, a man he'd trained personally years ago. Stand down, Riker, Joran called, raising his blaster. Don't make us kill you. Riker didn't slow. You'll have to decide if that's a line you want to cross, Joran. A tense moment stretched between them, enforcer and former student separated, now by a chasm of choice. Then, slowly, Joran lowered his weapon and stepped aside. I didn't see you, he said quietly as Riker passed. The gates loomed ahead, massive structures of metal and stone designed to keep threats out, and sometimes to keep people in. Two guards stood at attention, reaching for their weapons as Riker approached. Before they could fire, a transport vehicle roared up from behind the gate, its engines screaming. The side door slid open to reveal a Luridian man, his skin shifting between green and gold with urgency. Nira! He called. Hurry! The guards opened fire, but Riker was already running. Nira clutched against his chest. Energy bolts scorched the ground around them as they reached the vehicle and tumbled inside. The door slammed shut, and the transport accelerated away from the city, leaving the guards and their blaster fire behind. Inside the transport, Nira was gently taken from Riker's arms by her companion, who laid her on a makeshift medical bed. Her skin flickered briefly to a warm amber, relief perhaps, or gratitude. You're Tarek, Riker said, recognizing the Luridian from intelligence briefings. Leader of the Eastern Resistance. Tarek's eyes narrowed. And you're an enforcer who just burned every bridge behind him. Why? Before Riker could answer, Nira reached out, her slender fingers touching his arm. He broke the whip, she said, her voice stronger now. He chose differently. As the transport sped away from the capital, Riker gazed out at the landscape rushing. Yes. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the plains. Behind them, alarms wailed from the city walls. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and perhaps a chance to make right what had been wrong for so long. They'll hunt us, Tarek warned, checking Nira's injuries with practiced hands. You especially, Enforcer. Betrayal is the one crime the Sovereign never forgives. I know, Riker replied quietly, but some prices are worth paying. As night fell over Valara, news of what had happened in the capital plaza spread like wildfire through the colonies. An enforcer had shattered the ceremonial whip, defied the magistrate, and carried away a prisoner sentenced to public punishment. To some, it was an act of treason. To others, those who labored in mines and factories under the Sovereign's harsh rule, it was something else entirely. It was a beginning. Defiance and flight. The transport's engines hummed as it sped across the Valaran Badlands, a desolate stretch of crystalline formations and brittle purple grass that extended for hundreds of miles beyond the capital's borders. Inside, Tarek worked, silently, applying healing compounds to Nira's wounds. Her skin transitioned between shades of blue and green, pain giving way to gradual relief. Riker sat apart from them, his enforcer's uniform now shed and replaced with a simple gray tunic, provided by one of Tarek's crew. The badge that had once marked his rank lay discarded on the floor, a symbol of the life he'd left behind. We're approaching the canyons, called the pilot, a young Luridian female named Leto. Scanners show Sovereign drones in pursuit, 6 minutes behind us. Tarek cursed under his breath. They're moving faster than expected. We won't reach the bunker before they're on us. The shattered pass, Nira suggested, struggling to sit up despite her injuries. We can lose them there. Too dangerous, Tarek objected. The radiation levels will mask our signatures, she finished. It's our only chance. Riker moved to the cockpit, studying the navigation systems. She's right. The canyons are too open. They'll have visual contact within minutes. The pass has enough interference to blind their scanners. Tarek's skin flickered to a wary orange. You know much about evading Sovereign pursuit for an enforcer. I know how they hunt, Riker replied evenly. I used to be the one hunting. After a moment of tension, Tarek nodded to Leto. Take us through the pass. low and fast. The transport banked sharply, diving toward a jagged rift in the landscape ahead. The shattered pass was the result of an ancient mining disaster, a chain reaction that had split the ground for miles and saturated the area with residual radiation. Not enough to kill quickly, but enough to make the area forbidden territory. As they descended into the pass, the transport systems began to flicker. Static crackled through the communications array. Outside, purple lightning danced between crystalline formations that jutted from the canyon walls like massive, broken teeth. "Systems failing," Leto reported, her voice tense as she fought the controls. "Stabilizers offline in 30 seconds. Find somewhere to set down," Tarek ordered. "We'll continue on foot." Leto guided the faltering transport toward a relatively flat area between towering crystal spires. The landing was rough, more controlled crash than proper touchdown, but they survived. As the engines died with a final whine, the group gathered what supplies they could. "The radiation will mask our heat signatures," Nira explained as Tarek helped her from the transport. "But we can't stay here long." Riker shouldered a pack of supplies and checked the blaster he'd taken from one of the guards back in the plaza. "How far to your safe house?" 8 miles through the pass, Tarek replied, his skin shifting to a determined blue-green. "If we move quickly, we can reach it by nightfall." They set out, a small group of rebels and one former enforcer, picking their way through the treacherous landscape. The shattered pass lived up to its name: fractured ground, unstable crystal, formations that hummed with eerie resonance and occasional flashes of energy that crackled between the spires. After an hour of careful progress, Riker found himself walking beside Nira, who insisted on moving under her own power despite Tarek's protests. "Why did you do it?" she asked quietly, her voice almost lost beneath the ambient hum of the pass. "You had a secure position, respect, protection. Why throw it all away for a prisoner you didn't know?" Riker was silent for a moment, considering. 6 months ago, I led a raid on a mining colony. Routine inspection, they said. Looking for contraband, unregistered technology." He paused, navigating around a fissure in the ground. "We found a school instead. Children learning history, real history, not the Sovereign's version. I was ordered to arrest the teacher and destroy the materials." "Did you?" Nira asked, though. Her eyes suggested she already knew the answer. "Yes," he admitted. "I followed orders, told myself it was necessary, for stability, for peace." His jaw tightened. "The teacher was sentenced to the mining pits, died 3 weeks later in a collapse. She was 70 years old." Nira's skin rippled with a deep, sympathetic blue. "One incident changed your mind?" "It opened my eyes," Riker corrected. "Made me start questioning everything, seeing patterns I'd ignored." He looked at her directly. "When I saw you in that plaza, refusing to bow even when beaten, I couldn't be that person anymore. The one who follows orders without question." Before Nira could respond, Tarek raised a hand, signaling for silence. In the distance, the distinctive whine of Sovereign drones echoed through the canyon. "They're tracking us somehow," Leto whispered, eyes scanning the sky. Riker's hand went to his belt, searching methodically. He found it beneath a seam in his borrowed tunic, a small disc, no larger than a fingernail. "Tracker," he said grimly. "Standard protocol for all enforcer uniforms. I should have checked sooner." Without hesitation, he crushed the device beneath his boot. "Too late," Tarek said. "They've got our general location. We need to split up." "No," Nira objected. "That's exactly what they want." Riker surveyed the terrain ahead, mind racing through options. "There," he pointed to a massive crystal formation that formed a natural bridge across the canyon. "If we can bring that down behind us, it might buy us enough time." "With what?" Leto asked. "We don't have explosives. We don't need them." Riker gestured to the energy discharges dancing between the crystal spires. "This entire place is unstable. One well-placed shot could trigger a chain reaction." Tarek looked skeptical but nodded. "It's worth trying. Let's move." They hurried toward the crystal bridge, the sound of drones growing closer with each passing minute. As they crossed the natural formation, Riker positioned himself at the far side, calculating angles. "Keep going," he told the others. "I'll be right behind you." Once the group was safely across, Riker took careful aim at a specific point where the crystal met the canyon wall. A hairline fracture, barely visible, but potentially decisive. He fired a single shot. The blaster bolt struck the fracture, and, for a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like shattering glass amplified 1,000-fold, the crystal began to splinter. Cracks raced along its length, energy discharges intensifying as the structure destabilized. "Run!" Riker shouted, already sprinting away from the collapsing bridge. The crystal broke apart in a spectacular cascade, taking a section of the canyon wall with it. Dust and fragments filled the air, accompanied by a storm of purple energy as the ambient radiation reacted to the disturbance. When the chaos settled, a massive chasm separated them from their pursuers. On the far side, 3 sovereign drones hovered, their sensors scanning futilely through the interference. "That won't hold them forever," Riker said, rejoining the group. "But it gives us time." Nira looked at him with new respect, her skin shifting to a curious violet hue. "You've turned quite thoroughly against your former master's enforcer, Voss." "Not an enforcer anymore," he reminded her. "Just Riker now." As they continued through the pass, the suns began to set, casting long shadows through the crystal spires. The radiation interference grew stronger as darkness fell, creating eerie patterns of light that danced across the canyon walls. "Almost there," Tarek announced as they rounded a bend and faced what appeared to be a solid rock wall. He approached a specific section and pressed his palm against it. After a moment, seams appeared in the seemingly solid surface, and a hidden door slid open, revealing a passage beyond. Inside, the rebel bunker hummed with activity. Dozens of Luridians moved purposefully through a space carved directly into the canyon stone, reinforced with salvaged technology. Some wore the remains of mining uniforms, others the simple clothes of farmers or factory workers. All stopped to stare as Tarek led their unusual group inside. "Nira needs medical attention," Tarek announced, and 2 Luridians quickly came forward to help her to a treatment area. Before following, she turned back to Riker. "When I've recovered, we should talk about what comes next." "Next?" Riker asked. Her skin flickered to a determined gold. "You didn't just save 1 prisoner today. You gave hope to people who had none." She gestured around at the bunker and its occupants. "Word is already spreading through the colonies. The human enforcer who broke the whip and carried away a rebel leader. That story has power." As Nira was led away for treatment, Tarek approached Riker with a wary expression. "She's right, you know. Stories become symbols, and symbols start movements." His skin shifted to a contemplative green. "The question is, are you prepared for what that means? The Sovereign will hunt you relentlessly now, not just as a traitor, but as a threat to everything they've built." Riker looked around at the rebel bunker, at people who had chosen to fight rather than submit. People like the teacher he'd arrested, like the countless others who had suffered under laws he'd once enforced. "I made my choice in that plaza," he said quietly. "Whatever comes next, I'll face it." Outside the hidden bunker, night fell completely over the shattered pass. On the far side of the collapsed bridge, Sovereign forces gathered, preparing to continue their pursuit at first light. Above them all, the news of what had happened in the Capitol Plaza was already racing through the colonies like wildfire. An enforcer had shattered the ceremonial whip. A human had defied the Sovereign to save an alien prisoner. A line had been crossed and nothing would be the same again.